Hi ho folks, and welcome back to the adventures of Turwinkle, the Gnome Mage. Well, hi Turwinkle.
Salutations.
Are you all set for tonight?
Indubitably.
Well, great, because tonight we're going to be talking to Viezra, a wonderful RPer, and with a great RP storyline, and we can't wait to get over and talk with her. As you can see, we are in Hearthglen here, and so we are looking forward to getting to know all about Viezra. So without further ado, let us go and do that, shall we? And here we have Viezra, Dijera, Angel of Mercy, nicknamed V, Bright Eyes, Black Lightning, Griffin Maiden of Wildwing Company, a level 90 human paladin. And so folks, when we come back, we will be looking at Viezra's MRP. We also, as you can tell folks, are unable to talk with Viezra, so we will be doing the interview through text, which is just as good. And so folks, when we come back, we'll take a look at Viezra's MRP. So we'll be right back with that. And we are back. And so we have Viezra's MRP here. And again, she says she's a normal role player in character, eyes emerald green, race human, height 5'9", weight 145 pounds. Now this is what she has written for her description. Standing at nearly 6 feet tall, with a solid toned body and a stern countenance, Viezra can be a rather intimidating woman. Fortunately, her typically tight-lipped expression quickly melts into a warm smile with ease, though impish grins are not uncommon. Contrasting sharply against her relative dark skin tone, Viezra's eyes are vibrant, deep emerald color, further emphasized by her dark, thick lashes. Finally, her chic, stable hair is cropped to frame her face, maintaining both functionality and femininity. She is known to change hairstyles frequently, however. V's nails are painted a deep, reflective purple, and a few of her toes have small silver rings around them. A bracelet is looped around her left ankle, and from it hangs a tiny emblem of the Argent Crusade. She keeps herself, quote-unquote, mostly clean, and has a particularly love for sweet, faint cinnamon fragrance that follows her. She speaks with a heavy, exotic accent far removed from the drawls of Westfall or the twangs of Elwyn. She reminds one of matadors, eternal summers, and old men jousting with windmills. How intriguing. Well, that is a fantastic description, and one that you can really kind of sink your teeth into and get a great sense of who Viezra is by just looking at her description. So folks, when we come back, we'll take a look and see what her biography has to say. Alrighty, and we are back. And so as you can see on her biography page, she has only one hint as far as what it has to say, and that is her age 29. There are also some pictures that you can go and take a look at and give you kind of a clue as to what she imagines her character to be. So a wonderful MRP when it's all said and done. And so folks, when we come back, we're going to start talking with Viezra and getting to know her character a little bit more from her perspective. So we'll be right back with that. Alrighty, and we are back. And so again, one of the first questions we always ask is about the name. And so we said, so very nice to sit down with you, Ryzza. So my first question is, how did you come up with the name Ryzza Dijera? And Ryzza says, to be perfectly honest, since this character started as a drawn eye, and I later race changed her to human, I just went with the human look I liked. When I noticed that I had chosen darker skin and hair and all that, I decided to go with the Spanish-Arab sort of theme. Herrera is a Spanish surname, so Ryzza of the Herrera family. Dijera being her taken name since she was married, not her birth name. I said, so why did you race change from drawn eye to human? She says, well, as I had said, she started out as a drawn eye on my old server of Scarlet Crusade, but I already had several drawn eye characters and wanted a paladin, but didn't want to re-roll completely. And since humans are the quintessential paladin race, well, it just stuck. Alright, so I said, so you started on Scarlet Crusade and moved to Wormrest Accord. What prompted you to move from Scarlet Crusade? And she says, it was a number of things. Bad experiences with some people are a big part. But the main reason is that Scarlet Crusade itself, at the time for certain, was kind of dead. Like, there were 1 or 2 RP guilds on the Alliance side and a couple maybe on the Horde side of things, and they were both low population and such. But I had alts here on Wormrest Accord from the day it opened just to play around with. So when I finally decided to move off the corpse of Scarlet Crusade, I basically had a choice between Moonguard and Wormrest Accord. So I picked Wormrest Accord. Good grief. Boy, that was a noise machine. Okay, so she says, so I picked Wormrest Accord since I was quote-unquote kind of established here, and at least a tiny bit, and within a week or 2 of having Ryzza here, I got into a guild, and that was that. So wonderful. Excellent answers, and so we will be back with some more questions for Ryzza. Alrighty folks, and we are back. So we asked, so briefly, give us a glimpse into Ryzza's history if you would. Where was she born and what was her childhood like? V says, actually depends on how far back into her childhood you go. If you go all the way back, it sucked. Okay, her story is that she is an orphan, but not in the typical sense that her parents were killed in a war or eaten by fire ants or something like that. She actually was with her parents when they died, but due to circumstances she can't remember it much, if at all. But basically her parents were researchers in Stranglethorn a couple of decades ago, when it would have been even more wild and unexplored than it is now, and they came down with a deadly jungle disease. Oh my. So it killed her father outright and left her mother and Ryzza herself nearly dead. Eventually a group of soldiers, some of whom are NPCs in Stranglethorn now, eventually found the little cabin her family was staying in and quote-unquote rescued them. The fever left her mother in an unending coma, essentially brain dead, but Ryzza survived, if barely, and was sent to the Stormwind Orphanage to recover, and once she did, she was sort of quote-unquote recruited by the Silver Hand. And that's why she's a paladin now. She spent essentially her entire life from the age of 5 or 6 onward with the Silver Hand, Argent Dawn, or Argent Crusade. So wow, so how long did it take you to come up with her backstory? About 5 minutes, give or take. Well, for most of us, that would have taken a little longer. She says, I don't even remember how long ago it was that I came up with it, or when it came up, or when I came up with it in relative to her creation. I said, so how important do you think backstories of a character history is in RP? And Ryzza says, I think that depends. To the character itself or the people around them, not very much. The character, obviously, is simply your own behavior being expressed. You're the one controlling them. To other people, the backstory is largely irrelevant because they are seeing you, your character's behavior, in the here and now. But to you as the player of the character, their backstory is what helps shape them and quote-unquote determine the behaviors you use for them. An orc raised by humans like Thrall isn't going to behave the same as an orc raised by other orcs or chipmunks. And let's be honest, chipmunks are probably make better parents than orcs. Oh, whoa, zing. But that said, I don't think a character needs any sort of written background or anything of that sort, as long as you, the player, keep it in mind. Most characters' backgrounds and histories are unlikely to ever be spoken of in character, especially if they're traumatic, so that those stories are often only learned in the forums of story posts on the forums and stuff like that. In a way, I guess backstories are as much OOC as they are IC sometimes, you know? And that's very true. A lot of people will use backstories, like she said, only in regards to how their character behaves. and so a lot of times you won't know what their history is. And as you can see, like in her MRP, she doesn't have that all written down. Some people do, but in most cases you'll find that most people want you to get to know their character through RP rather than just reading it out. So wonderful answers, and we'll be back with some more conversation with Viezra. And we are back. And so we asked, so what would you consider your RP style to be with Viezra? Are you light, medium, heavy RPer, multi-para? She says, to be perfectly honest, I haven't been RPing much at all lately. I've done some Draenei related stuff on my shaman character, but I've hardly touched Viezra. As far as style itself, I go with whatever works. Brevity is best, I guess. So if I can wrap up emoting or writing in general quickly, that's the way to go. If something bleeds out into a paragraph or two, that's fine too, but I don't aim for any specific length. I feel like some people try to always get multiple paragraphs out by filling in unnecessary details or being needlessly descriptive or using excessively flowery prose. A lot of people call that purple prose, and it kind of fits. But yeah, there's very little need to differentiate between Viezra sits down on her butt and Viezra flops down upon her plush posterior, idly raking her fingers through the grass, blah blah blah. The result is the same, but one takes way longer to type and can come off as pretentious or attention hungry. Or overly focused on butts, and that's rarely a good thing unless you're a proctologist. Wonderful answer there. So, what has kept you from RPing on Viezra then? Lack of interest, I suppose. Friends have quit the game or left for greener pastures, plot lines have wrapped up, and things have become quiet in general. Viezra is perfectly sane, rational, and I'd like to think reasonable, so without a lot of conflict or something big and serious, there's not a lot to go through roleplay-wise that isn't just day-to-day life stuff. I could roleplay family stuff with her son or relationship stuff with her partner, but ultimately that's the kind of thing I've been doing for a long time, and it's not really that it's boring, but it's just more the same, I guess. And while I did note I haven't been RPing much in general, again due to lack of interest on my part, some of my other characters can quote-unquote make conflicts of their own or do not need any sort of motivation to do bizarre things. Viezra is an ordinary human paladin, good with a sword, decent with healing, and she has fabulous hair. But my other characters range of homicidal gnome to deranged Draenei to power-hungry demon. And when you're a normal human paladin up against the competition of a midget with an axe larger than she is, or a space alien with a creepy haunted mask, or a psychic thought-eating demon, well, there's not actually a lot of competition, is there? I guess not. So that is wonderful. And so folks, when we come back, we're going to learn a little bit about Viezra herself. So we'll be right back with that. All right, and we are back. And so we asked, so what can you tell us about you, the player behind the characters? What do you do outside of WoW? And she says, not a lot really. I'm pretty sick OOC, so I don't leave the house much. I'm pretty much stuck in here playing video games and watching YouTube and stuff, which is why it seems like I'm always online in some form or fashion, because I actually am. I've got a puppy close to the beginning of the year to try and alleviate some of the cabin fever, and if the bruises and bite marks on my arms and fingers are any proof, she's done a pretty good job of making things more lively. I said, so do you play... I said, so do you play or do you RP in any other games, such as Rifts, Guild Wars 2, or Lord of the Rings online? She says, I play a ton of other games, but I don't RP in any of the others. For a while I played Neverwinter Nights on a big, persistent world RP server, but I got bored of it and eventually stopped. Since I'm always at home, I have to mix it up at least a little bit or I'll go crazier doing the same thing constantly. And WoW is fun, but it does get old after a while, which is why I have like 150 games on Steam and the other similar programs and consoles and stuff. I don't even want to think about how many hours I've got logged into WoW though. It's probably years since I've been playing since open beta. I said, so in what ways do you think you're like Verizza? Well, for starters, we're both humans. I think that's a good link, right? And it certainly is. For some role players, their characters are straight extensions of themselves. Just digital copies of himself or herself with some fantasy elements dropped into WoW. And that's definitely fine, no problem with that. But for me, I have a trouble picking whether I want my characters to be an extension of myself and my personality, my experiences, or if I want them to be a fantasy-style template with traits and behaviors I want. Example, Verizza is a tall, strong woman with a son. She's got dark hair, dark skin, bright green eyes, she's strong-willed, a great fighter, all that good stuff. I, however, am kind of short, super pale, I have brownish hair and blue eyes. Some people might say I'm strong-willed, but I'd use the term stubborn instead. I have strong convictions. Ryzza wouldn't lie about something, and I wouldn't either. Neither I nor the character would back down from an argument or debate. So while I share some traits with my characters, others are more like traits I quote-unquote wish I had. And we'll skip that part. You folks can see that part. Dranes are so exotic and weird, that'd be awesome too. But as I told you earlier, I've been playing since open beta. As of right now, the game is 9 years old. I've been playing this game almost half as long as I've been alive. I think I was 13 or 14 when I started playing, and I was role-playing in Neverwinter Nights before that. So while everything I said above is certainly true, there's also kind of a subconscious part of this. I've been role-playing so long that a lot of the time I no longer have to think about what my character, would my character do this, or would I want this to happen, and stuff like that. So as scary, disturbing, and as weird as it sounds, sometimes I'm not sure there's much of a difference between myself and my characters in a lot of ways, if that makes sense. Sometimes that leads to issues, understandably, and that's a big deal. But it makes writing stuff and behaving realistically as a character easier at times as well. Which is true. Again, so you'll soon, if you RP your character long enough, you'll automatically start to know how they would react in certain situations without having to think about it too long. And it does make RPing with a character easier as time goes on, because again, you're starting to think as that character. And so what she says is very true. For a lot of people, they're able to react a lot quicker because they already know how their character is going to react in a situation, which is perfectly fine and great. So folks, when we come back, we'll see if there's any advice that Verizza has for any of the new RPers out there. So we'll be right back with that. And we are back. And so we ask, so what advice would you give to new RPers out there, or someone who would like to start RPing? And she says, just that, start. It's a skill to be learned, just like any other. The only way to really get your feet wet, or to get quote-unquote good at it, to improve yourself, is to actually get out there and do it. A lot of people are intimidated by starting, and that's pretty understandable since so many people are jerks on the internet. On a role-playing server, you can get blacklisted just because you are ignorant of some of the obscure lore fact. The people who do that are not the sort of people you'd want to RP with in the first place, but the fact that they exist is enough to scare new people off sometimes and sort of cow newbie role players into shyness and submission. So that's what I'd say. Get out there and start role-playing. Ask questions as much as you need to. Do not let the jerks dissuade you from trying. There's plenty of helpful people on this server, especially who would be totally willing to help new people learn the ropes firsthand, so to speak. The fact that there are so many guilds on the Alliance side alone that have such good reputations says enough. Van Dryce's Guild, the Mage Royal Society, the Order of the Golden Law, the White Sigil, Canarney, Caldori Resistance. There are a good group of people around basically for every character concept or niche you can think of. There's also a ton of role-playing resources on the forums. How to get started, etiquette stuff, lore stuff, all that jazz. I'd say Wyrmrest Accord is really a good place to get yourself settled into the idea of RP and get some experience under your +4 strength, +4 stamina leather belt, which is very true. Wyrmrest Accord is an excellent server if you're looking to come RP and get started with it if you haven't done so before. Because as Viezra mentioned here, there are a lot of wonderful guilds that will be more than willing to help you learn how to RP. And so I asked, what was the hardest thing for you to learn when it came to RPing in World of Warcraft? She says, actually, it's probably one of the hardest things anyone has to learn. There's a separation between in-character and out-of-character, between a character and that character's player. A character that is racist does not mean his or her player is racist, which seems obvious if they're racist against orcs or trolls or something, but sometimes it bleeds through anyways. A character that doesn't like gay people doesn't mean that the character's player is a homophobe. A male character who hits on every woman he sees doesn't mean the player is misogynistic. Someone whose character is an evil kitten-eating Death Knight isn't necessarily a jerk behind the screen, etc. The reverse is also true too. When you're a jerk to someone in character, sometimes you can actually upset the player. You might be right in thinking they're taking things too seriously or mistaking in-character behavior for out-of-character feelings, but the fact remains that you can potentially upset people even if you don't mean to, and that's bad, Jim. One thing that makes it extra hard for me is that I started playing this game, or rather role-playing in general, when I was so young. I was probably 11 or 12 when I started playing around on Neverwinter Nights role-playing servers. I was literally a child in elementary or middle school. I was a huge brat. I obviously knew the difference between IC and OOC, but that didn't stop me from holding grudges or anything, or getting upset at other people's behavior when it was just their character being a character. So that separation between IC and OOC is the biggest daybreaker, or deal-breaker daybreaker. The biggest deal-breaker for anyone in terms of what's hardest to get used to with role-playing. And that's very true. Sometimes people do blur the line between in-character actions and what that person is in real life. So keep that in mind, folks, when you're RPing. Know to separate the two. Just because I kill your character in-game doesn't mean that I hold anything against you out of game. It's just what happens in the game. So keeping stuff in the game is crucial to having a good time while RPing. So wonderful answer. And so when we come back, we'll get some final thoughts from Viezra. All right, and so we ask, so what would you like to add that we may not have covered here tonight? And she says, in conclusion, Libya is a land of contrast. Which, as she says, not a fan of Simpsons earlier seasons, which is a wonderful answer. Excellent answer. Well, thank you so much for taking the time tonight, Ryzza, to speak with Turwinkle. You are wonderful, and we certainly look forward to seeing you more in the future. And she says, you might grow to regret saying that. And I don't think so. She has been wonderful this evening, very easy to talk to. So, folks, if you see Ryzza Dijera around, feel free to walk up and RP with her. She's excellent. And as you can see, she's really well-spoken and really well-written. And so take the time to reach out and speak with her if you can. Again, an excellent RPer, someone that you would really enjoy speaking with as much as we have this evening. So with that, we will get Turwinkle and her out of the rain, and we will see Turwinkle back in the hinterlands with his final thoughts on Ryzza Dijera. So we'll be right back with that. And we are back, and as you can see, we made it safe and sound back to the hinterlands. And so, Turwinkle, what a great interview, wasn't it?
Affirmative.
You bet. So let's give her a nice thank you for doing such a wonderful job tonight.
Allow me to express my deepest thanks.
And so, folks, again, if you happen to catch Ryzza out there, give her a big hello and possibly even start RPing with her. She's a lot of fun and a great RPer. She really has a solid concept behind her character. And again, she's really well spoken and knows how to RP very well. So Turwinkle, excellent job again, as always, sir. And so, folks, if you like this episode, or if you like her RP style, click that like button. If you'd like to comment on this episode or any of our other episodes, do so below. Let us know how we're doing. And finally, if you'd like to subscribe, well, we would love to have you. Hit that subscription button tonight. Alrighty, Turwinkle, excellent job. Questions were right on point, as always, sir. And Turwinkle, we will see you next time.
It's been fun.
It has been fun. Bye-bye.